You're a child, awake at night. What a feeling. In your room, you cling to these rare hours of the evening and watch the hour hand crawl closer towards the parts of the clock you've never seen touched. Now you stare out your window, embracing the moon, the stars, and the darkness that engulfs them. You trace an owl's hoo-hoos up towards the densest evergreen in the neighborhood. You see a rat scurry across the top of a brick wall. You wave to your new nocturnal friends, bonded by the preference of night. Now you open your window and inhale, smelling the dark sky like chocolate cake. You hold it in as long as you can. Very soon, you know, it will all be taken from you. Not by a god or a black hole or any of the universe's hypothesized collapses. At this age, you know nothing of physical cosmology. You know nothing of the Book of Revelation. You're just a child. The forces that give and take from you are not understood through physics nor philosophy, nor through numbers nor thought experiments. Look at you. Your thumb is still pruned from having just kicked the habit of sucking it. Your pajamas are still one unified piece of clothing, cradling your entirety with fuzzy cotton. Your teddy bear is still an extension of your arm, not yet removed by maturity. You're still another 15 years from believing your life is dictated by astrological signs or personal free will or mathematical outputs. It's not that you're ignorant. In fact, you're quite bright as a child. You don't bother to comprehend the forces outside your house because you know as long as you are living inside it, they have no governance. The only true comes from within, from the two gods you have seen with your very own eyes, sitting on the ripped sofa in gray sweatpants, watching a show about rich people drinking mimosas on boats in the Mediterranean. The almighty parents, rulers of everything. And with just one compound word called up the stairs, they have the power to take everything away from you. Bedtime. And suddenly the curtains are pulled over the world you long for. Now it's not the stars, but the ceiling you're staring at. But thankfully, you are not alone. You pull your teddy bear out from its hibernation beneath your armpit, and you hug him gently, careful not to squeeze out his stuffing. Laying there, you can't help but wonder how your bear got like this, so beaten and bruised, torn up like a dog toy, one eye dangling from a string. His left leg bends forward, impersonating the joint structures of a flamingo. Yet, as far as you know, your best pal has done nothing but sleep. How is he so battered? Can hibernation be that taxing? Do teddy bears expire? The questions for now must be ignored. You lay there together in your bed, fighting the feelings of slumber, almost as if rebelling against mom and dad's tyranny. Thinking deeply only makes you sleepier, and tonight, you insist on staying awake. It's 9:30, and you've yet to be sucked into a dream, and that in itself is a small victory. But your parents' wishes will not be evaded that easily, if ever. They fight back by turning on the air conditioning. The soft rhythmic humming of the white noise weighs on your eyes, and soon you can't resist it any longer. Sleep sneaks up on you. The battle is lost. A safe 10 minutes later, your parents poke their heads into your room and see your body stiff and motionless, wrapped in sheets like a mummy. They celebrate their victory with a quick kiss and go back to the sofa to rest like gods on the 7th day. And while you are sleeping, dreaming of a tomorrow where you don't surrender to the same powers, there is yet another battle to be fought. And if all goes well, you'll sleep right through it. But some children won't be so lucky. On July 7th, 2001, a Portland, Oregon news headline reported a young boy missing from home in the middle of the night. His parents were quick to respond that their son wasn't the type of boy to go wandering out into the dark, and that something suspicious was sure to be discovered there in his bedroom. The first thing noticed was his stuffed animal, a jovial orca torn to shreds, its stuffing scattered across the carpet. Its head and body were stationed in the corner nearest the bed, soaked in a black substance similar to ink, its eyes damp with water. The boy, however, was not to be found. As the parents held their son's dismantled orca in their hands, feeling the weight of mortality, they combed their fingers through the stuffed animal's organs, as if giving it an impromptu autopsy, trying to determine what kind of beast could have done this. But it wasn't justice for the orca they were after. By the time we are old enough to be parents, we've outgrown empathy for our inanimate counterparts. For them, the orca was simply a representation of the cruel fate that may have also been bestowed on their child. Its death was only respected for how it related to the living, and so the poor orca was set aside, forgotten about, until investigators called upon the Foundation to intervene, at which point MTF Iota-12 were dispatched. It revealed that the young boy's room had large trails of viscous black liquid streaking the walls, the very same liquid found on the orca. But where did this liquid come from? Unfortunately, there was no camera footage to give us the answer. Neither were there eyewitness reports or any residual signs of what specifically occurred. Neighbors who were awake reported hearing the thumping from the room, which, as expected, was useless bystander insight, leading to nothing more than a series of rumors and speculations. Maybe it was an extremely localized earthquake. Maybe he was just throwing a temper tantrum. But where does maybe this, maybe that lead us to? Can factual answers ever come from this level of uncertainty? Well, one specific maybe, just may be, the key to cracking this case. Allow me to explain. 2 days after the event, the child was rediscovered, unconscious behind a hedge in the family's garden. A brief interview revealed that the child witnessed the final minutes of what he described as an intense battle. He claimed, "My orca was fighting a big monster, and then the monster grabbed me and took me out the window. But someone saw it, so it dropped me, and I hid in the bush." A second interview revealed no other discoveries, but the child claimed that the monster ate his socks. Initial reactions to the 2 interviews were as expected. Adults reasoned the claims were imaginary, a fabrication of the child's mind manifested to protect himself from whatever the real trauma endured actually was. But heard beneath the skeptical murmurs of jaded grown-ups enslaved by their narrow perceptions was one individual who dared to suggest, maybe, just maybe, the boy is telling the truth. And it was in the spirit of this hopeful and trusting maybe that the Foundation would prove the boy's story to be truth. And the truth would be known as SCP-6330. SCP-6330 is a phenomenon affecting stuffed animals worldwide, though it is most common in teddy bears. Manifestation of this phenomenon is referred to as a Sleepwalker Event, occurring only within the households of families with young children, typically between the ages of 1 to 14. While you're asleep, vulnerable to what lingers awake, your favorite stuffed animal may find life, impulsively combating enemies referred to as SCP-6330-2. These creatures typically blend with shadows, though this mechanism is poorly understood. They somewhat resemble creatures associated with fantasy, such as dragons or ogres, always manifesting beneath your bed, no matter how messy or clean it might be. SCP-6330-2 instances depict behavior indicating that they intend to hurt or prey upon the sleeping child, and it isn't nightlights or security systems that stop them, but rather SCP-6330-1s. SCP-6330-1 are stuffed animals already present in a child's room that seem to be non-anomalous prior to SCP-6330-2 manifestations. SCP-6330-1 has been shown to instantaneously manifest small wooden weaponry in order to combat SCP-6330-2 to protect their child. Battles have been shown to last upwards of 20 minutes and are always near silent. There is an unspoken agreement between both sides to keep their history concealed as best as they can. In observed cases, SCP-6330-1 have emerged victorious, though are severely wounded during the skirmish. Torn wool and stuffing are common, and following all known events, SCP-6330-1 have died due to their injuries, but only after sacrificing themselves for the safety of the child. Prior to death, the instance will drag the SCP-6330-2's corpse back under the bed frame and demanifest. To understand this, the Foundation has conducted just one test. Given the volatile nature of recreating the events, the Foundation did not push their luck with subsequent studies, and so it's the lone research done in 1987 on Site-44 that they still lean on to this day to understand SCP-6330 and the instances that come with it. It began with a researcher volunteering his 7-year-old daughter, henceforth referred to as Subject, to be placed in a humanoid containment room and soothed to sleep using a teddy bear that she had a strong emotional attachment to. For 12 straight tests, our subject was observed to sleep through the night peacefully, her environment remaining in alignment with the trivialities of deep sleep. But on the 13th study, something would happen, something very unsettling, even for the Foundation standards. MTF Iota-12 were stationed at the room's entrance for swift intervention if needed, and until that 13th attempt, they felt their focus to be pointless. Approaching the 3rd hour, however, they felt a subtle and unexplained value in their presence. They felt something coming on, that feeling while danger is looming, that feeling that makes you clench your fists just in case. And just as they made eye contact with one another to acknowledge this shared feeling within the group, a quiet rustling sound was heard beneath the bed, and sounds reminiscent of a large animal's breathing became audible. Suddenly, a pair of large, scaly, clawed hands grasped the rim of the bed frame. A creature resembling a western dragon emerged. But was it actually a dragon? Were the sheets ready to be blasted to flames? If slain, would the necks regrow and multiply by the hundreds? These thoughts raced through MTF Iota-12's head. One member instinctually ran for the door to go protect the child, but he was held back and restrained, reminded that the success of the experiment was dependent on letting the situation play out naturally. He was hard to console. Patience at this moment did not feel like a virtue. It felt irresponsible. A creature standing approximately 3 meters above the ground, switching between bipedal and quadrupedal motion, was stalking a sleeping child, and they were instructed to simply watch. For 5 minutes, the SCP-6330-2 patrolled the room, moving silently and methodically, unaware of the surveillance cameras. Then SCP-6330-2 turned towards the subject, positioning itself at the foot of the bed, stretching its arms out towards the subject. It gaped its jaws wide, exposing rows of large pointed teeth and a dark pink tongue. It looked like a snake in a field of mice. As it prepared to lunge at the subject, MTF Iota-12 was ready to intervene. But before they could, the stuffed bear stood up on the subject's chest and drew a small sword and shield from an unknown source, almost magically, like switching weapons in an old Zelda video game. It positioned its sword's tip downward and held its shield at its side. SCP-6330-1 hunched over slightly and twirled its sword, maintaining eye contact with SCP-6330-2 the entire way through. After 10 seconds, the SCP-6330-2 threw its jaws at the subject, and SCP-6330-1 responds with a leap towards the subject's attacker, slicing SCP-6330-2's eye. The SCP-6330-2 responds with a quiet grunt and touches its wound, which leaks a viscous black liquid. The SCP-6330-1 jumps towards SCP-6330-2 and, mid-battle, uses fabric from the bedsheets to quickly stitch the wound, attempting to minimize mess and proof of its presence. Both instances went to battle for 9 minutes before the first signs of damage to SCP-6330-1. Following the severing of one of SCP-6330-2's dorsal spikes, it strikes the SCP-6330-1 with a heavy slap, which sends SCP-6330-1 across the room. It stands back up, placing a hand on its stomach, and looks at its hand, which is now covered in wool and stuffing. They charge at each other once again, but as the subject moves slightly in her sleep, both instances stop and quickly agree on peace until the subject settles. When that happens, the instances resume fighting. Research notes that while the battle is genuine, there is an element of guidance. They do not follow a script, but it appears they follow a code. While both anomalies welcome the conflict brought on by the other, neither wants it broadcasted to the public. After 20 minutes of battle, both instances are heavily scarred and injured. After kicking itself off of the SCP-6330-2's nose, SCP-6330-1 sprints from one side of the room towards SCP-6330-2, leaping into the air and landing a fatal blow, slicing the neck of the other instance, which falls lifeless to the floor. SCP-6330-2 is dragged by the SCP-6330-1 back under the bed. A short while later, the SCP-6330-1 emerges. Damage sustained includes loss of one buttoned eye, exposed stuffing, and torn wool. It places its sword and broken shield on a nearby nightstand. SCP-6330-1 then drags itself up the bedsheets towards the subject, who was sleeping peacefully throughout the test. It rests beside the child lying motionless. It seems to glare directly at the camera, and a small digit protrudes from its round hand, giving a thumbs up to the researchers. Its head flops onto the child's cheek before it ceases to move. The father who risked his daughter for research is pleased with the discoveries regarding both anomalies, but it brings about a new set of questions concerning children and their relationship with the dark. These very thoughts you might even wonder yourself. Maybe a kid's desire to stay up past bedtime isn't so much about wanting to watch cartoons with curse words or read Calvin and Hobbes. Maybe it's not about a desire to be awake at all, but rather a subconscious fear of being asleep. Maybe our senses as children are heightened to the anomalies that creep about. Maybe all the fabled fears of children aren't fairy tales after all. And maybe mom and dad checking under our bed is just performance parenting. Because even if something were there, would they even be able to see it? Or is everything beyond an adult's understanding misattributed to the imagination? As we age, does our perception of how reality should look alter the reality that is actually there? Do we indeed see clearer with our expensive glasses from our high-rise office space? Or did we see more accurately in the glow of our action figure nightlight, spying through stitches in our blankets, looking past crusty eye boogers at what moved in the shadows? It is hard to ever know. For every real encounter a child has with an SCP-6330, there might be hundreds of falsehoods. The ratio is truly impossible to calculate. But as long as teddy bears are universal, so too are their anomalous enemies. And so where does that fact leave us? How do we go forward? Should we be afraid to put our children to sleep? Afraid of the monsters under their bed? I don't think that's what our hero would want. Sometimes we have to learn to trust things, even if we don't understand them. Like gravity or multiplication. We have to trust that the relationship between children and their stuffed animals are in fact real. We have to learn their loyalty is reciprocated, even if the adult world has taught us otherwise. And if we ever need a reminder of these lessons, we can look to Event 184 in Cambridge, England, where we have our first recording of a Sleepwalker event outside of controlled testing, and also our first piece of evidence proving SCP-6330-1 to understand language and how to use it to connect with humans in ways beyond being cute and cuddly. On November 11, 2008, a call was filed to local authorities by a family who claimed to have discovered footage of a Sleepwalker event within their son's room. Mobile Task Force Iota-12 lucid dreamers were dispatched to investigate. Immediately, the footage was seized by personnel, and all members of the family were administered Class A amnestics. The child's bed swayed lightly as an instance of SCP-6330-2 emerges. The instance resembles an unknown creature, though it is described as having a large muscular frame. The instance walks to the opposite end of the room, hunching over and observing the child for exactly 10 minutes. As the SCP-6330-2 begins to stand further upright, it extends a retractable set of claws. Then, the child's teddy bear suddenly stands, drawing a bow and quiver. SCP-6330-2 assumes a quadrupedal stance and snarls before lunging towards the bed. The SCP-6330-1 fires a single arrow towards the SCP-6330-2, striking the instance directly in its canine-like snout. SCP-6330-2 responds with a loud huff, reminiscent of that of a bull or bovine. The instances battle for approximately 30 minutes, the longest recorded Sleepwalker event to date. Both show abilities and skill sets consistent with other SCP-6330-1 and -2 instances. Eventually, SCP-6330-2 has SCP-6330-1 pinned to a nearby wall and tries to strangle it. The SCP-6330-2 then pulls one of SCP-6330-1's arrows from its arm, plunging it into the -1's chest. Then the -2 leans its head towards the -1 and whispers into the instance's right ear, though audio recordings cannot determine exactly what was vocalized. The SCP-6330-1 lifts up its head, staring blankly into SCP-6330-2's eyes. It reaches behind its back, pulling out a small, entirely wooden Glock 19 handgun. The bear points the weapon into SCP-6330-2's forehead and fires. The shot is silent, and the SCP-6330-2's body falls limp. Black viscous fluid sprays onto the wall. The SCP-6330-1 hauls SCP-6330-2's corpse towards the bed, noticeably limping. It drags the body by its large forearm and demanifests upon reaching the underneath of the bed. SCP-6330-1 returns and briefly stares around the room before turning to the child. It climbs up a desk and finds a piece of paper and a pen. It goes on to write the following note. Hello, Timothy. Thank you for always taking care of me. It really was fun. I was able to repay the favor of protecting you. Unfortunately, I am hurt. I need to go. I'm too weak to stay, and I just hope you'll remember me. It's been fun helping you. I've enjoyed my time under your care. Going into this, I knew it would happen. The Sleepwalker's coming for you. I'm just happy I could do my job. Goodbye, my friend. I hope I may see you soon. Now go check out SCP-999 and the most wholesome SCPs, and top 14 friendliest SCPs for more anomalies that'll just warm your heart.